Sorry about that, babe.
A blast from Bits and Glory's past, I decided to take it upon myself to do a re-review of Hook on the SNES. Now, this is a game that I covered pretty early on in my channel's lifespan. If you're interested in watching the old review, I'll actually leave a link in the pinned comment description below, but I'm gonna unlist it because I wanted to give this game, and possibly some others in the future, a better take. Hook on the SNES was developed by Yuki Yotai and published by Sony ImageSoft, released in North America in September of 1992. There were many different versions of this game on various consoles, some of which are really different, such as the NES version, but for the purpose of this review we are focusing strictly on the SNES adaptation. The gist of the game is as follows. You assume the role of Peter Pan, who must traverse through Neverland to regain his children who were captured by the evil Captain Hook. Admittedly, I have not watched the movie Hook in a long time, so I don't remember much regarding the Peter Pan/Hook lore, but the story seems fairly standard, which is conveyed well by the way of cutscenes, mostly at the beginning and end of the game. Hook is a side-scrolling action platformer and contains many levels on the SNES version. I myself only counted 11, but I've seen it written down as 12, so possibly there's a level that's technically divided up, but I'm not seeing it, so who knows. Regardless, there's a nice variety of landscapes such as caves, forests, lagoons, snow levels, and more. Peter Pan has a dagger in his arsenal, as well as the ability to jump float, sprint, which oddly enough I actually beat the game twice without realizing you could sprint, the ability to fly by refilling your fly meter by use of Tinkerbell's pixie dust, the ability to upgrade your dagger by use of the golden sword item that's littered throughout the game, or the first instance of it, you just inherit it by going into level 2, but the golden sword is fleeting as you lose the ability after only receiving a single hit from an enemy, so be careful. Along the way, Peter can find items throughout each area, or dropped by defeating various enemies, in the form of treasures which increase your score, cherries which replenish a bit of health, 1-ups, and much like the aforementioned golden sword, occasionally you will also find items such as apples which will fully heal Peter, or a leaf which increases your health meter all the way up to 4, making the game much easier for you. But these items aren't necessarily in every level. Graphically, Hook is really nice to look at. The game starts out with a bang as the first level includes a changing of all the seasons as you progress through. In general, the game possesses a nice color palette that grabs the eye, and depending on the area that you're in, the graphics help set the mood in a big way. You could feel the cold chill of the snow areas. Conversely, you could sense the feel of the warm sun while outside on the ship levels. The sprites and enemies are nice. The cutscenes are engaging, and there's really nothing to complain about graphically. Hook really sinks it in. Sound-wise, Hook is also great. The sound effects of Peter receiving damage or clanging swords against Rufio or Hook are very satisfying. But where Hook excels on this front is the soundtrack. To put it simply, it's really good. I found myself humming many of the tunes after finishing my runs, such as the first level, the long snow areas theme, the boss theme, and so forth. If a video game soundtrack can create a mix of being catchy and adding to the mood and atmosphere of the level itself, then I'd say it's done its job. Controls. This is unarguably the weakest spot for Hook technically. The controls themselves are fairly responsive, however the way they work is not entirely smooth. As mentioned, Peter's jumps are very floaty depending on if you hold down the jump button, release it quickly, etc. It can be difficult to maneuver him in tight quarters without taking damage. Similarly, flying is also a bit clunky. When you fill your fly meter, pressing the jump button while in the air will engage fly mode. To fly faster, you must hold down the sprint button, and controlling Peter at a high rate of speed while flying can take a bit to get used to. There is definitely a learning curve when it comes to the controls and these actions, but I guess it's not entirely on the controls themselves. They lead into some other issues which I will discuss now. They kinda go hand in hand. Now for the gameplay and fun factor. Overall, Hook is a fun game. Period. But the aforementioned so-so controls and the mechanics that follow keep it from being an all-time classic. You will find that the hitboxes of the game aren't great. There will be times where you take damage and you might not think you should have. There will be times where you weren't sure if you hit the enemy, but the enemy still died nonetheless. Sure, when you get used to the spacing, controls, and mechanics, it's not a big deal, but you have to call a spade and just admit that controls and hitboxes aren't great. Another negative for Hook is the fact that it's relatively easy. Some bosses can be tricky. There are definitely a few areas that are rough, such as the Flame Cave with the skeleton boss, or the final level on Hook's ship, but you have an opportunity for an enormous amount of 1-ups as well as infinite continues. At least I think they're infinite because I was able to keep continuing while on stream recently. Despite the fact that there are so many levels in Hook, the game is also fairly short. Hook can be completed fairly casually in about 20 minutes, and even if you struggle a lot, it shouldn't take you more than an hour or two. I mean, I get it, it's a platformer of the 16-bit era, so it shouldn't be drawn out. But you do have to admit it's a bit short. As you probably could expect then, there is no battery backup or password system available. Aside from all that, the game does a great job with level variety. You have some levels that are fairly standard action platformers. You also have gimmicky levels such as the auto-scrollers or levels that revolve around a lot of flying. The aforementioned Flame Cave with the skeleton boss is also a decent gimmick in that you cannot see unless the flame enemy is near you, otherwise you are shrouded in darkness. So you must decide whether to wait for the flame, or push ahead and hope your memory is really good. There are also a variety of levels that don't have bosses, some that are short, some that are long, and overall Hook does a great job with general variety. All in all, when you look at everything that Hook presents, it's hard to say that it's not a good game. The graphics are really nice on the eyes, the sound effects and soundtrack are also very good, the level variety and gimmicks are welcomed. Really, the only thing holding Hook back from being a legendary game on the console are the aforementioned control issues, hitboxes, and general easiness of the game. If the controls and hitboxes were a little bit tighter, I'd argue that this could be up there with the greats. Unfortunately, it is a bit flawed, and as such on this re-review of Hook, I now give Hook on the SNES a 8 out of 10, 1 point higher than my original review some years ago. Hook is a highly enjoyable action platformer with a whimsical nature and story. It's also not super expensive, so it might be worthwhile for you to track down and give it a spin. If you've enjoyed this re-review, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you haven't already. I do my best to reply to all comments and all videos, and if you want to see more Hook content such as my no-death walkthrough guide, my Let's Play where I also didn't die, check out the pinned comment and description below. Take care.